please take us through the journey back in the beginning of this beautiful success that we are reading today. Take us through defining moments that shaped the woman that you are today.
Thank you. Good evening, amazing ladies and the he for she's. Thank you for having me in this conference. As you mentioned, well, I'm a scientist. I'm a trained scientist, but I've done a lot of things. And a lot of the times, as women, we try to limit ourselves. And there's a particular quotation by Shakespeare that says that a master of all trades is a jack of all trades is a master of none. That a lot of us know of, but the actual full quote is actually a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. So we have been conditioned to, to think that, we have to limit ourselves. And I think growing up from a very young age, my mom passed away when I was 6. So I was raised by my dad. And we are 4 girls. So I grew up from a family of matriarchs. My grandmother was the first um, Muslim woman to actually complete secondary school and go study nursing in the UK in the 50s. So I grew up in a family where not being educated was not an option. And when I look at myself today, I am described as someone bold and confident, but I think I am basically just standing, as they say, on the shoulders of giants like my grandmother. So where we are not defined by what society says we should do, how society says we should act. As a woman in leadership, a lot of women try to conform and they're not authentic to themselves. So I come in a place with my red lipsticks and people look at me like, how dare you? How dare you? You have a PhD. How dare you be a relatively young woman? How dare you be authentic to yourself and be at this table? And so my journey started at a very young age. I left for the UK when I was 16. I went for sixth form, but every opportunity I had during my holidays, I'd be in the lab. So I'd be at boot camp at Oxford University. And my first research experience was actually a placement at Queen Mary University, where I made my first discovery, and I was actually awarded a Gold Crest Award by the UK government. And then I went on to study biomedical sciences, and my PhD is in immunology. So my first, but I also did some research work in neuroscience. So I came back to the Gambia. For us, not coming back home was not an option. Our father always said, you know what, you're going to study and gain knowledge and come back. Although I stayed for almost 10 years. So when I was expecting my first child, I knew that it wasn't an option to raise my child in the UK. I wanted my child to have the same upbringing that I had and to grow up in the same environment, but also be proud of who she is. So I came back. I spent a few months at the MRC, which is a UK organization in the Gambia. I went back, had her. When she was younger, I came back home and I worked on different vaccine trials. So for me, the defining moment was, so I call my journey from the bench to the boardroom. Although most people would have been fulfilled, but I was never fulfilled from all of those recognition. I would leave the labs and I couldn't unsee a lot of what was happening. I felt very unsettled that I'll leave the labs, I'll see a lot of sick people sleeping out in the waiting to be seen by a doctor, to meet a lot of really smart young people that do not have the opportunities and they're not employed. I think the one that really did it for me was, so Gambia has the highest illegal immigration rate. To see a lot of our youth in search of greener pastures, wanting to take what we call the back way. So, going through the oceans in a small canoe or through the desert, thinking that if they get to Europe, that's where the opportunities are, or or that the roads are made of gold and streams of milk, as I tell them. They to think that they've lost hope and they have despaired to a state where they believe that they have to leave their countries and risk their lives. For me, I had to question myself, and I did a lot of soul searching. What is the point of knowledge if you can't really use it to lift others? So I think for me, I had to find what my purpose is. And I actually wrote it out. And my purpose is I live to seek knowledge. So I'm a continual learner. I never want to say, I don't know. So I always say, I'll have to find out. So I'm a researcher. So, and I believe that if someone is able to do something or it has been done, then I can do research to learn how it's done. So I think this is what has really helped me. I've adapted to a lot of environments. So I'm able to take what I learned at the bench into the boardroom, and nothing has really changed. That curiosity I had, that drive to find answers and solutions, that drive and passion to really be a better person and to learn more and to gain knowledge and to troubleshoot as I go. So I never see it as I always see things as experimenting, right? I have a lot of interns, and I tell them, I was like, just being alive, I am grateful. And I'm a Muslim, and as Muslims, there's a word called jihad, and I believe for me, jihad is actually being the best person I can, but also helping others. What is the point of knowledge if it's not benefiting not only your family, but your community? And a lot of the times when I do things, I think about if I'm not here today. So I have this connection with death. I know a lot of people don't like talking about death, but I have a connection with death. And every time I do something, I think to myself, if I wasn't here today, would I be proud of this? If I wasn't here today, what is the legacy I'm leaving behind? But what will people say about me? But I also think that the value that really drives me is always saying my truth and being authentic to who I am. So no matter who is in a room, so everybody knows it in Gambia, I will say it as it is. And that has, I believe, has taken me to where I am now. The fact that I am willing to learn, I am willing to adapt, I will try to find a solution, but just being true to myself and being authentic. And um, for me, a defining moment as well was last week when my daughter wanted to, she's currently in South Africa at the African Leadership Academy. She's in boarding school, and she wanted to make a speech. And I was like, was it necessary to make that speech you want to make? She said, Mommy, you told me that no matter what it is or who it is, even if they're holding a knife on my neck, always say your truth. And then I said I had to allow her to be true to herself. So I think that's, as women, let's be truthful to ourselves, let's be authentic to ourselves, but also let's be that affirmation for other women. There was a meeting I went to, and I there was a guy, so it was a panel, and I was the only woman there. And after the panel discussion, everybody came to me and said, "Oh, that was an awesome speech." And there was a man next to me who was, so this was in East Africa, but the man was from West Africa, and he said yes at our expense. I'm like, okay, what is the connection between me giving a big speech, a good speech, or a good presentation at your expense? So we find ourselves in environments where insecurities, right, are displaced, and people will actually get upset at you for achieving something. So we need, but after that, at the next panel discussion, because of how I presented, the other women also really gave it their all. They stood up, they presented. So it was an affirmation for me, because sometimes you can look bold and confident, but you need that affirmation, and it can be small things. I was in an office 2 weeks ago, and I was walking, and my shoes were making, well, you know how heels, the sound that heels make, right? And I was like, oh no, and I started kind of tiptoeing. My shoes are making a lot of noise, and I turned around, and there's an amazing woman called Fatu Balde, who's an international woman of courage and recognized by Time, and she was like, "Cock, make that noise, girl, make that noise." I laughed, but it was an affirmation. I have another friend that would tell me, put on that lipstick. So, and when you're also in rooms, sometimes you can be the bold one that can talk for other people. I was in a meeting, and this was in a meeting of engineers, and there were only a few women engineers, and the male that they were debating, and they were saying how the men engineers were better engineers. And I came in and I was like, no. And I was the only one talking in that room. And I looked at the girls and I'm like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you saying anything? And one of them said, in every room, we need we need a woman like you, Auntie Jorjoh, to speak for us. So, but we will not always be in rooms where we can speak for everyone. And I think sometimes as women, we don't want to be seen as confident, as bold. It may be seen as arrogance. We don't want to be audacious, but I think life meets you at your level of audacity. So even when you're feeling, although people may believe I'm bold, even if I'm not feeling as confident, I always just come up with a smile and I try and I give it my best. So currently, I'm leading the Higher Education Trust Fund, appointed by the President of the Gambia, and is under the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science, and Technology. And our mandate is to provide strategic investments in our educational institutions to ensure that our trainees and our students have access. Yes, wait, thank you. You're so kind. I'll get that later. That our graduates have access to equitable, high quality, and relevant education. And all the time, from moving from a scientist to actually working in STEM leadership, being a co-founder, doing a lot of training. I'm a UN consultant. For me, I felt unsettled because it was that realization that science alone could not solve problems, and I needed to change systems, and that's what I have been doing ever since. But people in academia, some of my family members, first, why did you move back home to Gambia? Secondly, why are you leaving your job? I mean, you did your PhD. Why do you want to start again? And I think a lot of people don't look at, this is a skill set I have, and I have transferable skills, and they're not following their purpose. And I think that's where the difference is. A lot of people are looking at, what am I earning here? And I never looked at that. And I think that really helped me. I never really looked at what am I earning. It had always been, what is the impact I am making? And as I made that impact, it was actually roles that came to me, and I never really had to chase those roles. But a lot of people thought, oh, you must be crazy leaving this sort of job to actually start something else. But now I think it's because of I made that sacrifice. I came out of my comfort zone that I'm actually able to do this sort of work. And I call it my ikigai. I don't feel like I'm working. Every day I wake up, every day I'm looking at how I can find solutions to make sure that I equip the youth of the Gambia so that they have the tools and the opportunities that they need to have better livelihoods.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a very amazing, jam-packed takeaways. Be confident. Women, speak your truth. My follow-up question to you is, how do you balance it all? You are doing so amazing. How do you balance the career, your purpose that is so closely linked to who you are, growth, family, and expectations, while also staying true to who you are intrinsically?
Hey. So I think it was Michelle Obama that said you can have it all, but not all at once.
Yes.
And I think it has to do with a lot of prioritization, and you can never really have a balance, a work and life balance, as they say. I am I love my kids and I spend a lot of time with them when I can. So whenever I have the opportunity, I try to really spend a lot of time with them, and I don't take myself too seriously. So I play with them, I jump on the trampoline. So and that's the same. That's my sort of character as well with my staff as well. Like, but they know that what I if I get into a room, they know that I have the authority. I have empathy, but they also know that because I work so hard, they also work really hard. For my
Yeah.
children, I also have a good support system in that I have people that help me to take care of them. And that makes life slightly easier, but it's really difficult. So I have my first child is 17, but my second is 7, and the third one is 6. So I have this long gap
Yeah.
where I just focused on my career. I focused on doing my PhD, and now I have two really young ones. And I don't have the same energy as I did with the first, but I'm really doing my best with these two. But also the first was so much easier to manage.
The one, number ones are always easier.
Right? And then the last two are really, testing me. but I just do my best, and I'm really amazed at the love that they give me. And I sometimes feel guilty that, I'm not spending as much time as I do with the younger one, but I have a lot of mentors that help me navigate that. Um, and I have a good support system. So my family, my husband, they're quite understanding, but it's not easy at all. So when my second child was really young, what I used to do was to wake up at night and do a lot of work, then sleep again. So my sleeping pattern was not that perfect. But
Yeah.
now I take what I do a lot of events. But when it's weekends, I don't take any events. I dedicate that to my family. Also, I try to do as much as I can at work so that when I come home, I can also spend time with them, help them with their homework, do their hair. Although when I do my child's hair, my husband tells me that I should be paying them because I'm actually experimenting on their heads. But so I do everything that I'm supposed to do as a mom, and I just do as much as I can. I wish I could do more, but I'm trying
Mm,
my best.
okay. On that, share with us a season in your life where you were emotionally, mentally, and professionally stretched. And ultimately, how did you change that? How did you pivot that for the better for you?
Um, so I think it would be about, so the last place I worked, I was emotionally connected.
Mm,
Um, be- but it was about where could I make more impact, but also realizing that I have contributed enough and I can still support as I can. But I had also groomed a very good team that could take over. And I think the realization was, so I'll give them something to do to write a proposal. Just with little guidance, the quality of work was just exceptional. I was like, okay, I'm not needed here anymore. I have trained them enough. And I think sometimes in leadership, you need to know when it's time to step aside and lift others to take over.
mm,
I do a lot of community work, community initiatives, and a lot of the times these are institutionalized. But also, I have chosen who to give time to because the realization that not everybody is worth your
mm,
time, it's very important. When you start choosing who to give time to and what work to do, what not to do, um, and choosing yourself slightly, it really helps. It's stressful sometimes, having to deal, especially when you're part of different communities, different
mm,
personalities,
mm,
and not everybody can take your type of personality, right? But I do a lot of training, understanding the different types of personalities and how to work effectively with them. But sometimes as well, when you work with a lot of people, you notice that some people are different, and you have to communicate in a professional way why they how they need to work to make you successful in your role.
yes.
And I think sometimes as a woman leader, it may be taken differently. And it usually happens with men and not women staff. I think wherever I am, I have a lot of women that want to come and work with me. I have men that also want to come and work with me, but sometimes with some of their values that they use to, and sometimes religious, sometimes cultural, you would see that they would some of them would try to challenge you.
Mm,
They will try to
yes.
challenge you. And as a scientist, I can take on any challenge. Bring me 10 men and we will just keep going. My husband and my brother-in-law tells me if they want to have a debate with me, let's do it at night because I sleep early at 8 p.m. But if you do it in the morning, it's a never-ending debate. So
Mm,
I just say yes.
show up.
I say yes, yes in the evening. But I think yes, it's definitely just knowing how to deal with some when men try to challenge you.
Yes.
And but I don't think much of it. I just let my work speak for myself. I am just
Mm,
authentic to myself. So either you accept that And that's the sort of culture that I built.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you
do that
so
too.
much. In closing, give us one point in your life that you realized that your story, your voice, and your journey had the power to inspire and uplift other women. One point.
Okay. Something. Yes, let me just say this. Yes, so I think it was a couple of years ago, and a particular mentee went for a championship in Ghana. So this is just one that I can think of at the top of my head. And I think they were losing. It was a robotics competition, and they were losing. And she looked at her instructor and said, "I cannot go back without the trophy because of
Mm,
Auntie Jorjoh. I need to take this back so Auntie Jorjoh can
mm,
be proud of me." So I think sometimes just by being,
mm,
although you're going through so many challenges, but just by being who you are and giving that hope to people, they also want to do more. And for me, that is enough. If I can wake up any day, and by just the work that I have been doing, or the fact that I want to do more, someone else feels that works harder or dares to dream, for me, that is enough. But also, I wanted to share this. A couple of years ago, I was very ill and I was sleeping in my bed. And at the time, I had just finished my consultancy. There was a consultancy I finished, I got paid. I had ordered new clothes and shoes, but I was so sick that I was looking at my closet. I could not do anything. So I think we really need to look at sometimes mental health, physical health. We need to really take care of ourselves, because without health, we can't do anything. And let's take care of ourselves first before we can take care of other people. But I think since that day, for me, I'm just very grateful that every day I am looking at how I can do more. And I have that sense of urgency, because I believe that if I don't do more, that's another person that's risking their lives by going through the back way because they don't have an opportunity or they don't have hope in our countries.
Thank you. That's so important. Boundaries and self-care. Audre Lorde said that it is a form of warfare to take care of thyself. Thank you so
Indeed.
much, Dr. Jorjoh. We've learned so much from you. It is so inspiring to hear the story of a woman who walks her path and says it like it is, in a world where women are expected to refine themselves. So thank you so much for coming
Thank
up and
you.
stepping and sharing.